All right, so in the news, a lot of you who watch my videos know that when something comes out in the news, I like to see where psychiatrists are headed and what they're going to do with it. So the article is by Julie Wallace, and there was also a video that accompanied it. I watched a little video. It's called "Why Women Are Medicating Away Their Moodiness." Did I say Julie Wallace? Oh, Kelly Wallace. Excuse me. And the psychiatrist's name is Julie Holland, author of the new book, Moody Bitches, The Truth About the Drugs You're Taking, the Sleep You're Missing, the Sex You're Not Having, and What's Really Making You Crazy. So in the video, she talks about how psych meds, SSRIs, antidepressants, make you less horny and harder to climax. It makes you a zombie. You lose creativity. And sensitivity and emotionality are an asset not to be medicated away. She brought up 1 in 4 women take psych meds, and 1 in 7 men do. So within psychiatry, of course, they're not all on the same page. They all want people to take medication to a certain extent. What that extent is depends on if it's a psychiatrist for pharma or a feminist psychiatrist. A feminist psychiatrist is probably more likely to recommend psych meds to a man than a woman, if you ask me. Of course, I don't have any studies to back that up, but it's just logical. Now, especially when you look at 1 in 4 women take psych meds because they're more emotional. Toward the end, she says, "You should be more like a man," joked Holland. Now, doesn't that scream feminist to you? Joking or not, they like to slip that in there. And she brought up that 9 of 10 big pharmaceutical firms spend more on marketing than research. And I brought this up in my studies, Pretty much everything she talks about, I brought up in my studies. I even used the term zombie. I even talked about sexual side effects and, and how it's keeping me from my martial arts as well as being completely alert and creative and able to make videos. So here you see a woman who, she wants people to take medication, obviously. She's not going to steer them completely away from it, and she's going to downplay some of the side effects. But when it comes to women, which is one of her passions because it's her political views, I brought up another video that someone said that once you determine what a psychiatrist believes, you can determine, what they're going to do to the patients or how they're going to treat the patients. And so, you see this kind of war in psychiatry. A feminist isn't exactly on the same page as the pharmaceutical image for the world and the Masonic image for the world, but they're close enough. I brought up before that it's ironic that feminists team up with psychiatrists and homosexuals team up with mental health and psychiatrists when there are some of the most targeted people for psychiatry. Now you have statistics from a psychiatrist herself, verifying what I said before, giving you the numbers, Remember I told you about my insight and how I speak the truth and how they can't disprove it. And when the articles come out later, they tend to prove what I say, especially if you read between the lines. So what do we have here? I want to wrap this up in the next minute. So there's one of the things in the article is opinion. Are drugs stifling women? You see, as soon as the feminists feel like they're not getting their just due from teaming up with certain groups of people, then they'll have people try to correct that. Do I agree with her? I think that's what I should finish off by saying this. I agree with her for the most part. I don't think medication is ever a good idea, but I understand why people take it so they can function and they can get by. I don't agree with that. I think you should live your life no matter what. Losing jobs and all that, to me, is not as big of a deal as missing out on you being yourself. You should be yourself. The most I've ever felt like me is when I stopped smoking and stopped drinking, got off psych meds, and as a result, I have people all the time trying to get me to go back to drinking, people trying to get me to go back to smoking. and people trying to get me to go back on psych meds. You know, it's quite sad. So let me just wrap this up real quick. Okay, they talk about how social media affects your life. Okay, so psychiatrists and the psychologists, remember, they know ahead of time that social media has this effect on people. It leads to sadness, depression, and envy, right? So they're like, look, this guy goes on social media a lot. You know, part of his problem, that's part of his problem. So let's exacerbate his problem by planting women. And you see in that one video, let me bring up the title for you because I want to make sure that nothing goes missed. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. Proof of psychological operation, women, familiar faces, and F. I'm going to change that to family. So it's familiar faces, it's supposed to say familiar faces and or family, but I kind of ran out of room. So, you know, in that video, you'll see two women that look alike. One that I talked to on Tinder recently, and one that I've dated and was my girlfriend years and years ago. And so they look alike now, and they dress alike. So, and they're connected for sure. Now, the other connections I've made in my life, you know, I'm not sure about. Some of them I'm more sure about than others. But you can see right there from the picture I posted that I'm not crazy. You know, I'm not seeing two people who don't look anything alike and say, that must be that person's daughter. I'm seeing people that look alike who you can tell, hey, that must be that person's daughter. Or that is probably that person's sister. In this case, I didn't claim it was a sister. But I claim they look alike. The people that I've claimed are family look more alike than the two women I show you in the video proof of psychological operation, women, familiar faces, NF. On my Sid Jackson channel. Okay, so what do we have here, really? We have proof that my claims are valid. Some of them are even verifiable. And all these people, you know, whether they're Santa Clara County Sheriff deputies, you know, or Lori Smith herself, who probably is familiar with my case and is advising them, you know, or their supervisor who's familiar with my case and is advising them, or the psychiatrist in the psych ward who push medications all day, and they're more for pushing medications than, say, Julie Holland, who's trying to help women out a little bit more than the rest of us, and who also gives women medication too, though. So, you know, ultimately, you go to a psychiatrist, unless they're a feminist and you're a woman, you're almost guaranteed going to leave with a prescription for something. And Julie Holland, obviously, if she saw it my way, she wouldn't have very many patients. You know, she'd have maybe 1 or 2, 3, 4 patients that she prescribes medication to, you know, because she would come to the conclusion that the rest don't need that. They need to change their lifestyle. They need to exercise more. They need to eat right. They need to meditate in some cases. They need to go to church, etc., etc. But she's not going to take that angle. She didn't talk about spirituality in this. She's just talking about medication. She's living in the secular world, if you will, while I'm living more in the spiritual world. And that's huge disagreement that you're going to see come more and more in the future. As the people who live in the secular world more tend to be the people with more money. And slowly they're going to gain the upper hand. And many of you are going to sell out to them. You know, even those of you who think of yourself as spiritual, you're going to say, well, I'm going to keep my spirituality to myself so I can keep my job and boop-de-whoop. And it's that attitude that's going to allow these people more and more to gain more and more control. And I see the first step. I recommended the first step in the movie Malcolm X versus Martin Luther King Jr. Scene 2, Not a Threat, obviously. Okay, in that video, which is a scene from the movie scene that I'm putting together, you know, because in a movie I can say more of what I want to say. And I can't be accused the same way. If I make this a speech, it's different than making a movie scene, because it's a movie. You know, I could say some off-the-wall, violent stuff in a movie, you know, that I really want to say in my speech, you know, and they can't hold it against me, even if they know that that's my intention, is to get my message out, but it's a movie, you know, and so I'm allowed to say a little bit more, you know, and it's pretty much what it is, you know, as long as I don't say I'm going to whoop-de-whoop to the president or something, you know, and I start detailing and trying to make plans with people through the movie, you know, I should be all right. And so I'm out of time, and I didn't want to make it twice as long as I wanted to make it, but, you know, here it is. Thank you.